Welcome everybody to the House of Medics. For those of you who haven't been with us before, if it's your first time watching us, good evening. So we're actually just going to get straight into it. Joined with me is senior clinical pharmacist Aliyah Gordon. Round of applause. Okay, so again, for those of you who don't know who we are, what we do, we are the House of Medics, a group of young professionals who are basically very passionate about the healthcare world. So no, I'm not a doctor. No, I'm not really in the health industry. I do marketing, but I love all things to do with medicine and stuff like that as well. So I'm part of the House of Medics technically. So Aliyah, let's get into it. So how long have you been doing your pharmacy things for?
I've been fully qualified for 2 years now.
2 years?
Yeah, it'll be 2 years in April. Mm-hmm. But I've been obviously studying and everything. That was 5 years. Because you do your 4 years, your undergrad and masters, and then you do a year as a pre-reg pharmacist in your industry.
Okay, so how did you get into like pharmacy things? Because I know she tells us all the time how much she loves science. How did you actually get into it and think, okay, I actually want to become a pharmacist. That's what I want to do.
It wasn't until applying for university that I realised I wanted to be a pharmacist.
Oh, wow.
I did quite a lot of work experience. I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do. I knew at that stage that I love science. So I knew to look in that direction.
Yeah.
I did a few taster sessions at universities, went to view a couple of courses, and then came up on pharmacy and loved it.
Lovely, okay. So it's really funny because when I think about science, I don't actually think about like pharmacy and medicine and stuff like that. So I love how you kind of related the science thing to the pharmacy. I think that's amazing. So let's go back 5, 6, 7 years. Tell me what was going on with you then. I'm not going to be the person to like bait you out. I want you to kind of tell us your story. What was going on with you?
My story? There's a lot that I probably can't say in the time that we have, but I would say the main pinpoints for me would be I'm going to take it further back. So it started in about year 9.
In school, secondary school.
Secondary school, yeah. So we were doing exams, getting ready for GCSEs. And at that stage, my teacher had told me that practically I was rubbish at science.
Seriously?
Yeah. That
so was you not passing or?
No, so we did one exam and I actually got a D on that exam.
Is that bad? Is it bad?
Well, it was enough to be pulled out of lesson.
Oh, wow.
And we had 7 sets and they tried to put me, I believe it was 5th set out of 7. Told me that I would have to do a foundation paper and that the highest that I would ever possibly get would be a C.
So your teachers told you that from a young age? Basically.
Yeah, from year 9. So for me, that was kind of crushing. I'd never failed. I was always quite like top of my class from even primary school. So for me, that's where it all started. It was kind of like, okay, what do I do now? I'm a failure. I'm not really good at anything. Because again, it was a few other subjects, but mainly science for me was a focus. So being told I was rubbish at science was a kind of like hit.
Right.
And again,
something you enjoyed, but you just weren't good at it.
Yeah, and again, being put in a bottom set would mean the highest I could get was a C. So forget any career.
Oh wow.
Science-wise,
yeah.
I mean, no one would take you if you got a C or a D. Do you know what I mean? So yeah.
Okay. So when did you kind of realize that, okay, I'm having these thoughts, these negative thoughts? Because seeing where you are now, and obviously we live in the same household, so I see how passionate Aliyah is about her work. When it comes to her work, she doesn't play. Like, she doesn't play. She'll be the first one there. She'll be the last one home. When she gets home, she's hyper because she's had such a good day at work. She doesn't play when it comes to her work. So you went through depression when you was younger.
Yeah.
And now you're a senior clinical pharmacist. So just talk to us about the transition. How did you go from that low kind of space to where you are now? How did you battle the thoughts? How did you kind of say, okay, this might be depression?
So, like, continuing on, I was actually, before that, I was actually bullied in school. So I was bullied in year 7 and 8, but we're not going to get into that today. So that happens. Then the whole thing with the teachers happened. Went to uni very alone. Didn't really know like anybody at university. I didn't stay on campus. I didn't really have time to meet friends. I was working part-time. What was you doing part-time? So I was working in Sainsbury's. Okay. I was working 22 hours a week, studying full-time, and I was in a cheerleading squad and a gymnastics squad. So I was in uni and out, like in for lectures out. So I didn't really meet a lot of people. Then I began to like kind of just push through on my own. And for those of you who start uni, you would kind of figure out that your first year is quite tough. I mean, it's very independent. You're finding your feet.
Yeah, definitely.
So for me, just being alone in that situation, and I was the first person in my family to actually go to university.
Right. Did you feel like really pressured as well?
I wouldn't say it was a pressure for my family members because they were very supportive, but I want to say lost.
Right.
I had no direction. I didn't know anybody that had ever gotten as far as I did.
Yeah.
So for me, it was you've got the support, but the support can only support you as much as they know.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I just, from there, things kind of went downhill. I just started feeling very low, kept myself to myself, kind of got on with things. And I didn't really speak out even to my family members. And long story short, I ended up in counselling. So I went to CBT, which is cognitive behavioural therapy. And that's when they tried to give me therapy for what they called it, depression.
So were you referred there, or did you say to yourself, no, I need to actually speak to somebody?
I was referred there. So funny enough, I actually had a GP appointment, and they made me do a questionnaire. I think she noticed like I was quite low in mood, and she made me do a questionnaire. I didn't really think much of it, and what I scored, she said like that was really, really like bad in terms of like on a scale of depression.
In terms of your mental health?
Yeah, in terms of my mental health. So from there onwards, she actually was quite caring. She kept like calling me. Your GP doesn't really do that.
Yeah.
So she'll call to check in with me every few days and see how I am. Then she referred me to an actual therapist, but she actually dropped out of the GP practice. She got moved elsewhere and she wasn't able to follow up with me. So through that time period, I was kind of in limbo, just waiting for my therapy to start. Then I obviously started therapy and I didn't actually find it useful. I hated the sessions. I hated going.
What were they like?
the lady would just sit you down and ask you, like, just kind of figure out why your thinking is that way, and kind of give you like coping mechanisms. But for me, I was more of a subject than an individual. She didn't truly understand, and I didn't quite understand how I'd got there. So to kind of explain to somebody else was really hard to express how you truly felt. So for me, being in those sessions, I didn't find it very useful. I didn't find that she understood me. And in the end, I slowly started missing sessions, dropping out and stuff like that, ignoring phone calls.
Okay.
So yeah.
Okay, so can I ask another question? Was there a point where you were like, no, like this is getting a bit dark? And was there a point where you were working in healthcare and you was actually suffering with depression as well? Has that happened?
No, so I wasn't actually working yet. I was still studying. Even in so after you do your 5 years of university, you have a pre-reg year where you're not qualified, but you're a graduate. And in that year, I was still kind of here and there, because funny enough, a couple of the higher pharmacists also told me, I don't know what you're doing in this profession, you need to rethink what you're doing, are you sure you even want to be here, that kind of talk. And for me, I'd always along the road had people doubting me, had people telling me I wasn't actually good enough to be there, and you kind of start to take on that and think, okay, maybe I shouldn't be here. And it got to a stage where I realised, you know what, this is what I want to do, this is where I want to be. I either have to accept what they're saying or prove them wrong. And it was only with that change of mindset that I was able to start coming out of those thoughts and start kind of feeding a negative thought with a positive thought.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so you kind of got to the depression thing because of the voices and because of things you were told one after the other.
And just feeling very alone.
Why are you doing? And then you'd even be at work and you'd have the people that you work with saying to you like, "Why are you here?" kind of thing. And then you got to a point where you were like, "No, this is what I want to do." So you kind of just let those thoughts go and said, "No, let me focus and just stay in this thing." Okay. So if there are any other young people that might think they're dealing with depression, what would you kind of say to them to kind of wriggle them out?
I would say to speak out and speak out early. For me, I know I left it a very long time that I was like fighting with these thoughts. And if I was to speak to like my younger self, I would tell myself to speak out earlier. Once I started to develop the right mindset, I realised that you can actually overcome pretty much anything as long as you believe in yourself. I think in this day and age, everyone feels like other people have to believe in them, but I've now realised that as long as I believe in myself, I can achieve. And it also helped with mentorship. I was able to meet a gentleman who now mentors me, and he was able to feed me with the right mindset and tell me that, you know, it doesn't matter that you're the first in your family or the first in your community or wherever you are to start something, but you can build something and hand that over to the next person. So for me, what keeps me going now is knowing that I have to keep encouraging myself and being around like-minded people so that I'm able to help other people who also will go through the same challenges.
No, I love that. And I think mentorship is something that's really important as well, especially as a young person. Another question. So what do you do now to kind of make sure that you don't always go back into that frame of mind? Because even me, I haven't dealt with depression, but I've dealt with things where thoughts will always come and I'm always kind of trying to dismiss them. So what would you say now you're doing to make sure that you don't go back into that space that you once were?
I want to say 3 things. So the first is to be around like-minded people. And it doesn't have to be people in your field. It can be people who just encourage you and push you to do better and to achieve. As not necessarily people who, like I said, are doing what you want to do, but as long as they can help you to get where you want to be around those kind of people. And don't be afraid to leave certain friends, shall I say, or associates behind, because if they're not helping you to get to where you want to be, they're not going to help you. Secondly, I'd say mentorship. Find somebody who can help to guide you, who's in a position like much higher or further than you are, someone who's got wisdom, who can actually help bring you along. Like you rightly said, we're house of medics. There's many people like myself who live in this house and who are attached to this house. Get in contact with one of us. We're happy to help mentor any young person who wants to push. And thirdly, I would say is that be your best encouragement. Know that even if those around you are doubting you, as long as you don't doubt yourself, you will make it.
Yeah.
And there will be times when you might think, oh, I can't do this. But then you have to fight that thought and say, I might not be able to do it right this second, but I'm going to learn to do it, and I am going to do it, and I'm going to push to do it. Just encourage yourself.
Awesome. Okay, so now let's talk about your day-to-day at the hospital that you work at. Again, guys, she is always raving on and on and on. Has such a good day-to-day, guys, blah, blah, blah. So tell us about one of your best days from like start to finish. Because I know you've done a shift once where you got there really early. Is that recently? You know what I'm talking about, right? Yeah. So tell us like a day-to-day kind of thing, what you do, and why do you love it so much? Why are you so passionate about it?
My day-to-day would be different, but I'd say the best day for me would be coming in early, doing ward rounds. So it's a consultant-led ward round. You're with other doctors.
What is ward round?
So ward round is where you visit each patient that's been admitted during the night. So they haven't had like a team to kind of carry them on. So
because they haven't been seen to yet. From the night
so
before.
they will come in the night through A&E or be brought in by ambulance or whatever it is. And then, so what we'll do in the morning is we'll visit each patient. I will check their drug chart, check that the medicines prescribed are correct for them, and just work with the doctors in that way. Then I'll go onto the ward, hand over to the other pharmacists, and we would then delegate roles and decide who's going to do what ward and what bay. We'll then all closely review those patients. Then about 11 o'clock go to triage. So this is with the doctors, the nurses, the physiotherapists, those who are in nutrition. So they help with patients who now have difficulty in swallowing, who might need their medicines changed. That's when we'll come in.
That's stuff that you guys do it.
Yeah. So let's say a patient now is struggling to swallow. I'd have to change their medicines to either like patches or maybe dissolvable tablets that can then be dissolved in water and put through an NG tube. So things like that. So you look at each patient, decide who is fit enough to go home today or tomorrow, decide who will need discharge medications, look at their care when they leave the hospital and stuff like that. So there's a lot to do in a day, and you're working with different professionals, which is why I love it.
And no day is the same, right?
No day is the same. No day is the same.
Awesome. Another question. When it comes to self-diagnosis of depression, what do you think a person should do? Do you think they should speak to someone? If so, what is the best way to go about it? Because I know I've had days where I don't want to speak to no one, and I know that I'm in my head, but I can't seem to get out of my head. So what would you say is the best way to kind of fight your mind or fight your way out of that? Because it is the mind, it's the mindset, isn't it?
Definitely. I think your mindset in terms of what are you feeding yourself with that day. I genuinely realised that my day would only go bad if I've been feeding myself with negative things.
Like such as what though?
That who you're around, the things you're reading. I mean, for me, I suffered a lot with self-esteem because people were telling me I was so rubbish. I was feeding that to myself, but then it would also be things like, why don't I look like that person? I suffered a lot with body image. Comparing. And those are all thoughts. It all comes from the mind. What makes you think that you have to look like that person? What makes you think that you can't do that? Do you know what I mean? So it's those kind of thoughts. I mean, we all have off days, and I think it's very important to distinguish, is it an off day or is this actually now chronic? Like, is it every single day I'm struggling to get up? I don't want to leave the house. I'm no longer finding joy in the things I used to. You kind of have to establish there, is this something that's just an off day, or is this something that's continuing and it's now disturbing me from doing things I need to do? I think once you get to that point, you just speak to someone, anybody. If it's a friend, if it's like you have to go to a GP appointment, or there's loads of helpline numbers, and I believe it's on the House of Medics website under the new article that talks about depression and lockdown. So have a look at the bottom. We've got about 4 or 5 different helplines. I actually used a few. Sometimes they were helpful, sometimes they weren't. But when I was in my really dark days, I used to sneak out of the house and go for walks at 4 a.m. and make calls. Wow. Whether or not that's something to be proud of, but I'll tell you that there are people that are in those jobs that you can speak to if you feel you cannot speak to somebody around you. But I'd say don't ever face it alone, like ever. That's the one thing I'd say, just do not be alone with it.
I agree. And I think sometimes even the thing where you can maybe text someone and be like, hey, I'm feeling down, and the person straight away will be, I want to call you. Just say, I don't want to speak. Don't call me, but like just be with me on the phone. Like just message me, blah blah blah. Blah. So anything to kind of make sure that you're not in your head by yourself is what I would say.
Exactly.
And just quickly as well, I want to know, what would you say, because you're medically trained, that's why I'm asking, what would you say the word depression actually means?
Funny enough, I don't think you can define, well, me personally, that's not my speciality. I can't define depression because I think it shows in different ways, and you'll see it in different people differently. But I think when it's a constant low mood and you're not able to do your general day-to-day tasks and you're not able to find happiness or joy in the things that you're doing, I'd say for me that's depression.
Right.
It's when your mindset's
not happy.
Yeah, when it's not even just not happy, but when your mindset's in a place that you can no longer function normally for you.
Right.
Like what I can do in a day might not be what you can do in a day, but I will know when that's me in my depressed state. So I'd say if you're even questioning it, it's worth speaking out about.
Right.
If you're at that point where you're like, I don't really know what this is, I'd say you're at a stage of just talking to somebody. And I think speaking about it also helps you to figure out what it is.
Yeah.
Because I can speak to you and say, actually, it wasn't that bad. But I can
someone else's perspective.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But then I can speak to you and be like, well, actually, now that I've said it out, I feel a little bit better.
Yeah.
So there's different ways to dealing with it. But I would really encourage you to speak out to somebody. Yeah.
Love that. And you might be repeating a little bit of what you just said, but I'd like you to kind of direct an answer to any young girls or guys who are watching, who maybe haven't gone through depression but might have had that kind of feeling, or maybe they have. What would you say to them now? You've gone through it, and now you are very senior in your place of work. So you kind of battled through your mind. What else would you say to them to kind of get through that?
I would say just kind of have your mind set on the end goal, and don't have high expectations. It's all fair and good knowing where you want to be, but people might think it's a straight road, and it's not. You will have, like I've said, bumps in the road, on and off days. You might even have to reroute. And I've known people who have been studying with me in college, maybe not made it, and they've had to drop out or retake years or anything like that, family issues, deaths in the family. I mean, we're in a pandemic, people are going to feel low, they're going to feel isolated. But the best thing is using what's around you. So you've got social media, and I'm not talking about going on Instagram, I'm talking about using, I don't know, FaceTime to speak to a loved one, or just talk to people around you to help you keep going. And don't think that everything's going to be just rosy, because it won't be. You would need to kind of just like keep going. Don't think that, okay, there's this that's happened, I'm not going to be able to achieve what I want now. You will. You'll just have to go another route.
Love that.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, guys, so I hope you took something from that. I know I definitely did. As we're all kind of going through this pandemic together, if you do need anybody to speak to, House of Medics are available everywhere, LinkedIn, Instagram. Obviously, we have the website as well. So if you do ever need to reach out to anybody, especially medic professions, you've got Aliyah here. You've got Mary as well. Everybody on the House of Medics page, Dr. Emma, Dr. Abe. And again, I'm not a medic, but you can reach out to me. We can have a little talk as well. So, Aliyah, where can they find you? What platforms are you on? I know you're on LinkedIn, Instagram. Let them know where they can find you.
So I'm on LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. But the main one I use is Instagram. So it's Miss Aliyah _ Miss with an M for mother, S for sugar, ALIYAH _ Drop me a DM if you want to speak about anything, if you just want help getting into your field. For guidance, that's fine. But I'd also say, if you are looking for a healthcare professional that you really need, go onto our website, and there's links to further support that will help you.
Lovely. Awesome. Thank you. And if you want to follow me,
I'm
going to do this every single time.
It's okay.
My Instagram is Tanisha with, I think it's 2 A's. Tanisha with TANESHA with 2 A's _X. So you can follow us on LinkedIn at House of Medics.
Yeah.
You can follow us on our website, which is
houseofmedics.org.
And then you can follow us on Instagram, which is
We Are the House of Medics.
We Are House of Medics. So thank you guys so much for tuning in.
Thank you.
We're really, really looking forward to your feedback. And again, if you have any questions about depression or trying to grow in your field as a pharmacist, just DM Aliyah and she'll be more than happy to help. And if you want to speak to me about anything else, DM me. So thank you guys for tuning in.
Thank you.
I will speak to you guys soon.